How is it going, everybody? I hope you all are doing well, and an early Happy New Year's to you all. It's time to dive into the latest chapter of My Hero Academia, manga chapter 165, entitled Win the Brat's Hearts. And this chapter is actually fairly early, considering that this is the first brand new chapter for 2018 for My Hero Academia. I'm glad that it's early. I really enjoyed the content that we got with this chapter. It was very fun, very enjoyable, but also it still felt very, very simple for a My Hero Academia chapter. So there won't be too much to really dive in and dissect and just discuss with this overall chapter. But this current mini arc we are going on with our four student heroes of Bakugo, Inasa, Shoto, and Kami, basically them taking care of these brats, of these kids that are just so ill-tempered, so ill-mannered. I'm having a lot of fun just getting to see Bakugo's facial expressions and just getting to watch him explode and just seeing his personality seep through as they're trying to take care of these kids. This is going to be a very short arc. Like, my guess is we're gonna have like maybe 5 more chapters of this arc, but this is definitely a much needed tone shift when you're comparing it to the overhaul arc we were just in when that got very serious and dire. This is just a very fun mini arc just to bring back the characters of Bakugo and Todoroki, and I'm really enjoying it. So basically for this chapter, the majority of it is just basically taking Bakugo, Inasa, and Shoto's point of view on how to dealing with these kids and then watching them fail miserably, which was very funny to watch. But then by the ending of this chapter, it all comes down to Kami basically letting all of them know, it's like, all we have to do is just show these kids who we are, so why don't we just show them our quirks? But what this is leading into is going to be very, very funny, where it seems like we're about to have an all-out brawl with these elementary school students with our 4 soon-to-be in training heroes of Bakugo, Inasa, Todoroki, and Kami. But what I'm most excited about this is getting to see Kami's quirk, because even though we saw Kami when Toga was disguised as her, I really don't think we really know what Kami's quirk is, so I'm very excited to see that. But then on the other side of this chapter, the last section I definitely want to dive in and just talk about just a little bit in depth is that conversation taking place between All Might and Endeavour, and actually getting to witness Endeavour coming to All Might and asking for advice and asking about being a symbol of peace. That right there has me very interested, and I'm very curious to see where Endeavour is going to be taking the words of wisdom from All Might, how he's going to apply that to himself now that he has risen to the new position of the current #1 hero. So let's dive right into this week's latest chapter, and the first thing that I want to bring up right off the bat is just getting to witness Bakugo's personality clashing with all of these little elementary school students. His facial expressions, his explosive personality does not mesh at all with these little kids, and the fact that these little kids are getting the best of him, making him very, very angry, stealing his gauntlets away from him, I am absolutely loving just the way that these personalities are coming together, because Bakugo should not be in charge of taking care of little kids. He just doesn't work that way. It's like putting Endeavour in this situation. You cannot see Endeavour looking after these kids, and by far, my favorite panel of Bakugo is on page 6, the top panel, where he's just staring down all of these little kids to where he just basically looks at all of them and says, "Which one of you punks is the strongest? Come out and fight me." That right there is absolutely amazing. I even tweeted this panel out specifically and just tagged it with Bakugo Babysitting 101. It is just absolutely hilarious to me. If you have an ill-mannered child, just hire Bakugo as your nanny. He will just kick that child's ass and get that child in line. So Bakugo is definitely my favorite character for this week's latest chapter, but also we had Kami, or Kami, however you pronounce her name, still basically saying the same type of dialogue we saw with last chapter, saying lit and fam. It seems very weird hearing that from an MHA character, but I'm starting to get used to the real Kami's personality. She's just very bubbly and very outgoing. I really do like her character. But moving away from those, let's dive into the 3 failed attempts of Bakugo, Inasa, and Todoroki as they're trying to basically get these kids under control. So the first person to present their plan to try to get all of these students in line is of course Bakugo, and his plan by far is the most extreme out of everybody that presents their plan, but Bakugo's really does fall in line with his overall personality, and just to think that he would most likely do this with elementary school students is very, very funny. So Bakugo is basically looking at this overall situation and realizes that there's most likely a ringleader or a boss boss within the students that is kind of making all the students act this way. So his plan is to find this ringleader, basically beat them up, string them up with a piece of rope, and to throw stones at this person. Have the students, and himself included, throw stones at this person, basically to show that their diminutive existence means very, very little. And that right there, I'm reading this, I'm like, that's a little extreme, Bakugo, don't you think? But what makes this even funnier is you have the little Monoma kid, the one that's leaning up against the wall that has not moved since last chapter, and he really does remind me, and he could possibly pass as Monoma's little brother. He's looking at Bakugo and says, "Your violent way of thinking is so outdated. You must have had a terrible, terrible upbringing." This kid is throwing shade at Bakugo. And you even have Kami come in, shaking her finger at Bakugo, basically saying delinquents are so out of fashion. So Bakugo's plan ends up failing right out of the gate. Then we have Inasa come in, and immediately I honestly thought his plan was going to work because he's stepping forward, looking at the overall situation, and is like, well, we don't really know anything about these kids. Why don't we just ask them what they're all about? So he ends up asking the question, how many of you guys want to become heroes? And we see all the kids raising their hands. They're like, pick me. Oh, I want to be a hero. Heroes are so cool. And he ends up picking 2 of them up, and he's like, that's great. That's awesome. Heroes are supposed to bring smiles to everybody's faces, but if you kids are causing trouble for your teacher, how can you guys expect to become great heroes later on down the road? And one of the kids he's holding ends up saying, well, you do have a point, but aren't you causing trouble for all the teachers and the public safety people that are making you go through these extra courses? Aren't you not being a very good hero? And we have this hilarious moment where the kids are just laughing, and he's basically like, crap, you are right. How can I ride on top of this high horse when I too am causing trouble for my superiors? And in classic Inasa fashion, goes to bow and bang his head on the ground. And we see present Mike just basically like, he's heroically pure, but he is not doing very well in this situation. So Inasa ends up failing. So Bakugo failed and Inasa failed, and right now it's all relying on Todoroki. Todoroki decides to step up. He's like, guys, don't worry, I got this. And as soon as he's about to talk with these kids, he kind of has his eye go up towards Endeavor in the stadiums, and we see Endeavor looking down at him, and he ends up shouting Shoto's name. But once that ends up happening, Todoroki just starts mumbling his entire backstory to all of these kids, trying to make them understand where he's coming from and why he's trying to become a hero. He's basically mumbling like Deku does whenever you see it in past chapters. He's in Deku mumbling mode right now, and he's talking about how he hates his dad Endeavor, why he wants to become a hero. He's basically giving his entire character backstory. Even present Mike is looking at him as like he is reading off his character introduction page right now, which was very funny fourth wall breaking by present Mike. But all of these kids are just not having it. They are bored out of their mind. They do not want to listen to Todoroki. You're like, dude, you're boring us. We're gonna leave you right now. So Todoroki also ends up failing. We had Bakugo fail, Inasa failed, and now Todoroki failed as well. And basically the saving grace for this situation comes down to Kami, where she's looking at the situation. He's like, well, you guys are right that these kids need to understand where we're coming from, so why don't we just show them by showing them our quirks at work? And Bakugo, of course, is like, well, I was thinking the same thing. We should totally do that. So, and this ends up leading into, which is going to be something so funny, where it looks like we're about to have a full-on brawl between our 4 students with these brats of elementary school students, because we see all the students, all the kids activating their quirks, and it seems like we're about to have an all-out fight breakout, which I am so looking forward to. I want to see Bakugo just punch the hell out of these kids. I think that'd be very funny, but that seems to be where we're leading to right now, where it's going to be this fight breaking out, and very immature of all of our students, you know, trying to become heroes of Bakugo, Todoroki, and Inasa. They don't have the heart to talk with these kids, where if Deku was in this situation, I think he would have an easy time communicating with these kids. But the last thing I definitely want to talk about and cover is that conversation between All Might and Endeavor, because I have been looking forward to this conversation ever since it was teased 2 chapters ago. Getting to see Endeavor actually humbling himself, sitting down with All Might, talking with him man to man, superhero to superhero, number 1 to former number 1, asking for advice about being the symbol of peace, what it meant to be the symbol of peace, and being that pillar of justice that held up the superhuman society, and how it all is crumbling down now that All Might technically is no more. He's no longer that symbol of justice. And we actually get to dive into Endeavor's mindset, seeing what drove drove him this entire time. We already knew that he was seeking power, he wanted to become the #1 hero, but we did not know how long he's actually stayed at the #2 spot. He has been the #2 hero ever since he was 20 years old. And I really do like how the panels are set up, and the artwork really does go to show that Endeavor has been climbing this mountain trying to reach #1. He has been climbing the All Might mountain trying to reach the #1 hero spot. But he realized even back then at 20 years old that he was never going to be able to reach the peak of the summit of All Might mountain. And now that he's at the top, now that he's #1, he doesn't really know what he should do right now. Like, what does it mean to be the symbol of peace? What does it mean to be the #1 hero? Because Endeavor's not going to change as a person. He even states this to All Might. He's like, I can't put a smile on and act the way you did as you were the #1 hero. And he's just wanting to hear what All Might has to say about this overall situation. And All Might ends up telling Endeavor that Endeavor should not strive to copy and be exactly like All Might. He can never be like All Might. And the symbol of peace means different things from person to person. Endeavor has to go out on his own, be his own person, be his own hero, and discover what it means for him to become the symbol of peace. Because for All Might, he found it on his own as his journey went on to become the #1 hero. When he was little, he just noticed that the superhuman society lacked that symbol of peace, lacked that pillar of justice to hold up the superhuman society from all the villains trying to tear it down. And he has basically set out on that goal, reaching for that light until he eventually reached it. But then, once he reached it, he kind of just threw some people to the wayside, including his sidekick, Sir Night-Eye, where he ended up ignoring the kindness from all the people around him as he was slowly declining as the symbol of peace and started to lose his power. That was the path that All Might chose, and it's what kind of led to his downfall of being the #1 hero, and it kind of leads him into the current state he currently is right now. So his advice to Endeavor makes a lot of sense, where he's basically saying, Endeavor, I realize what the people are saying about you in the media, how they're comparing you and me. It's going to happen, but you just got to find it on your own. And I think the advice that All Might really gave here, even though for some people it's kind of just like, well, we already knew this. This makes a lot of sense, because being the #1 hero, being the symbol of peace, means different things to different people. And you can also apply this to Deku as well, because he, out of all characters, is the most trying to mimic All Might. Sure, he's done different things here and there to separate him from All Might, but he has always looked up to All Might, and he's always modeled himself after All Might. So Endeavor and Deku are going to have to strive to do different things in order to become that symbol of peace. Whether or not Endeavor can do it, that we'll just have to wait and see, but I'm really excited to see where Endeavor is going to go from here, how he's going to pursue becoming the symbol of peace. I think that is going to be very, very exciting. So that is basically everything that happens within this chapter. I had a lot of fun with this chapter, very enjoyable. We had some serious moments with the Endeavor and All Might conversation, but everything else with Bakugo, Inasa, Todoroki, and Kami dealing with these brats, I found to be very, very enjoyable. And I am really looking forward to the battle that's about to take place between all the elementary school students and our 4 soon-to-be provisional license heroes. So that's my review for chapter 165, guys. I definitely want to hear your thoughts, theories, and opinions. You can leave that down in the comments below. And if you guys want to join in on the conversation, talk about My Hero Academia outside of YouTube, you guys can definitely follow me on Twitter. A link for my Twitter account to be found in the description below. That's going to be it for this video, guys. And until the next chapter, which I think is going to be in 2 weeks, we're going to have a long wait until chapter 166. It's going to suck, I know, but we're just gonna have to take it, wait this long break, and then once it comes back, we'll be back to weekly chapters. So until chapter 166 of My Hero Academia, I will talk with you guys then. And remember, guys, one last time for 2017, plus Ultra.